The pregnancy test said positive on the same morning my father's bankruptcy lawyer showed up at our door. I stared at the two pink lines like they might disappear if I wished hard enough. They didn't. Neither did the sharp-suited woman in our foyer, her briefcase clicking open with the sound of my entire world ending. "Mr. Hayes, I'm afraid the assets will be seized by Friday." My father didn't even look at me. He just nodded, gray-faced and hollow. I pressed my palm against my stomach. Still flat, still hiding the secret that would destroy what little was left of my life. 3 months pregnant, cast out by my ex-husband 2 weeks ago, and now officially penniless. Perfect. I'd always hated how my brain worked. Ever since I was 13, I'd been able to hear thoughts. Not all of them, just the loud ones, the emotional ones. The ones people screamed silently when their mouths stayed shut. My mother called it intuition. My therapist called it anxiety. I called it a curse. Right now, my father's thoughts were a funeral dirge. Failure. Failure. How do I tell him? Too late, Dad. I already know. I slipped out of the bathroom, test hidden in my jacket pocket, and walked past the lawyer without a word. She didn't even glance at me. In her mind, I was already gone. Just another debt to be written off. The California sun felt like a slap when I stepped outside. Our house in Pasadena, the one with the ivy-covered gate and the koi pond, wouldn't be ours by the end of the week. Garrett had already made sure I wouldn't get a cent from the divorce. His family's lawyers were sharks, and I'd been too heartbroken to fight back. Stupid. So stupid. I pulled out my phone, hard scrolling through contacts I hadn't touched in months. Most of them were Garrett's friends, people who'd smiled at me during our marriage and ghosted me the second he tossed me out like expired milk. Then I saw it. Dominic Volkov, Garrett's uncle, the one we weren't supposed to talk about at family dinners, the one whose name made Garrett's mother go pale and change the subject. I'd only met him once, at our wedding. He'd shown up late, dressed in black, and left early. But I remembered his eyes. Dark, sharp, like he could see through every lie in the room. And I remembered his thoughts, the only clear ones I'd caught that night. The boy's too soft for this family. He'll break. Guess he was right. My thumb hovered over his name. This was insane. Dominic Volkov ran half the underground business in Los Angeles. And he wasn't the kind of man you called when you needed help. He was the kind of man you avoided unless you had a death wish. But I was pregnant, homeless in a week, and out of options. I hit call. It rang twice before a low, rough voice answered. "Adrian." Not a question. He knew. Of course he knew. "I need help." My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. Silence. Then a slow exhale, like smoke curling through the line. "Where are you?" "Pasadena. My father's house." "Stay there." "Wait, The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, my heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. What the hell had I just done? 20 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up in front of the house. The windows were tinted, the engine purring like a predator. The back door opened. I didn't think. I just moved. Inside, where the leather seat smelled like expensive cologne and danger. The driver didn't speak. Neither did the man sitting beside me in the shadows. But I didn't need him to. His thoughts hit me like a tidal wave. Pregnant. Stupid kid. Garrett's an idiot. This changes everything. I turned, and there he was. Dominic Volkov looked exactly like I remembered. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair slicked back in a jaw that could cut glass. But up close, he was something else entirely. Older than Garrett by at least 15 years, maybe more. There were lines around his eyes, a scar along his temple, and a presence that made the air feel heavier. He didn't smile. "You're keeping it?" Not a question, a statement. I swallowed, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. "Yes." His eyes tracked the movement, and for a second, something flickered across his face, something I couldn't read, not even with my ability. "Does Garrett know?" "No." "Good." He leaned back, his gaze still locked on me. "You're staying with me." I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." His voice was calm, controlled, but his thoughts were a storm. Can't let him go back. Can't let Garrett touch him again. Mine now. I froze. Wait, mine? Before I could say anything, the car turned onto the Pacific Coast Highway, and the city lights blurred past the window. My heart was racing, my mind spinning, and all I could think was, I just made a deal with the devil, and he was looking at me like I was something he wasn't planning to let go. I should have said something, anything, but my mouth had apparently gone on strike. And my brain was too busy processing the word mine echoing through his thoughts like a brand. I don't need a babysitter, I finally managed, forcing my voice to sound steady. I just need a place to crash for a few days until I figure things out. Dominic's eyes didn't leave mine. You're not crashing anywhere. You're staying. The way he said it made my skin prickle. Not a suggestion, a fact. I crossed my arms, leaning back against the leather seat, trying to look more confident than I felt. You know, most people ask before they kidnap someone. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Most people don't call me when they're desperate. Ouch, fair point. I looked out the window, watching the ocean blur past in streaks of silver and black. The highway was nearly empty, just us and the hum of the engine. My fingers drummed against my knee, a nervous habit I couldn't shake. Then it hit me, his scent. I don't know why I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe the shock, maybe the adrenaline. But now, trapped in this car with him, it was impossible to ignore. Cedarwood and smoke. Something darker underneath, like leather and rain-soaked earth. It wrapped around me, warm and suffocating, and my Omega instincts perked up like a dog hearing a whistle. No. Absolutely not. I pressed my palm against my stomach, reminding myself why I was here. Pregnant, broke, homeless. The last thing I needed was my biology getting ideas about my ex-husband's uncle. You're fidgeting, Dominic said, his voice low. I'm thinking. About? Whether this is the worst decision I've ever made. He huffed a sound that might have been a laugh. When it's not. How would you know? His gaze slid to me, slow and deliberate. Because the worst decision you ever made was marrying my nephew. I stiffened. He wasn't wrong, but hearing it out loud still stung. Garrett said I was too emotional, I muttered, more to myself than to him, that I didn't understand how his family worked, that I embarrassed him. Garrett's a coward. The bluntness of it startled me. I looked at Dominic, really looked at him, and found his expression carved from stone. Cold, final. He cast you out because he's weak, Dominic continued, his voice dropping into something dangerous. And weak men destroy what they can't control. My chest tightened. I wanted to argue, defend Garrett maybe, except I couldn't. Because Dominic was right. Garrett had loved me when I was convenient. I won when I smiled at his colleagues and played the perfect Omega spouse. But the second I got complicated, the second I cried or questioned or asked for more, he turned into someone I didn't recognize. Why do you care? I asked quietly. Dominic didn't answer right away. His jaw ticked, and I caught the edge of his thoughts before he locked them down. Because I should have stopped it, should have seen it coming. Before I could dig deeper, the car slowed, turning onto a private road lined with cypress trees. At the end of it sat a house that didn't belong in Los Angeles. It was massive, modern, all glass and steel and sharp angles. The kind of place that screamed money and power, and don't come closer unless invited. This is I asked. Yes, of course it is. The driver parked, and Dominic stepped out first, moving with the kind of grace that made me think of wolves, predators, things that hunted in silence. I followed slower, my legs shaky as I took in the view. The house sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean, waves crashing against the rocks below. It was beautiful, terrifying, isolated. Come inside, Dominic said, already halfway to the door. I hesitated. His scent hit me again, stronger now, like the wind was carrying it straight to me. My pulse stuttered. Heat curled low in my stomach, unwelcome and insistent. No, not happening. I took a breath and walked after him. Inside, the house was even more intimidating. High ceilings, dark wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that made it feel like the ocean might swallow us whole. Everything was clean, sharp, expensive. No warmth, no clutter, just control. Guest rooms upstairs, Dominic said, shrugging off his jacket. Beneath it, his shirt stretched across his shoulders, tailored and perfectly fitted. Second door on the left. I nodded, but my feet didn't move. He turned, catching me staring. Something wrong? Why are you doing this? The question hung between us, heavy and raw. Dominic stepped closer. Not fast, not threatening, just inevitable. And suddenly the air felt thinner. I could feel the heat radiating off him, could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, could hear the steady rhythm of his breathing. My Omega instinct screamed at me to submit, to tilt my head, to bare my neck. I locked my knees and held his gaze instead. Because you called, he said simply. His thoughts crashed into me, louder than before. Because Garrett never deserved you. Because I won't let him destroy you. Because you're mine now, whether you know it or not. My breath caught. He leaned in, just a fraction, his eyes searching mine like he was looking for permission. Or maybe a reason to stop. I should have stepped back, should have put distance between us. But I didn't. And when his hand brushed mine, just the barest touch of skin against skin, I felt it everywhere. The bond I didn't know existed. Snapping into place like a lock turning. Oh no! I jerked my hand back like his skin had burned me, which technically it had, not physically, but the sensation that shot through me the second we touched felt like lightning and honey and every terrible decision I'd ever made all at once. Don't, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Dominic's eyes narrowed. He felt it too. And I could see it in the way his pupils dilated, the way his breath hitched just slightly before he controlled it. You felt that? Not a question. I didn't feel anything. Liar. His thoughts called me out before his mouth did. He's lying. He knows. He felt it. I took 3 steps back, putting the massive leather couch between us like it could somehow protect me from whatever the hell just happened. My heart was hammering so hard I thought my ribs might crack. I need to sleep, I said quickly. It's been a long day. Week, month, year, actually. Dominic didn't move. He just stood there watching me with that predator stillness that made my Omega instinct scream conflicting messages. Run, stay, submit, fight. I chose option 5, deflect with sarcasm. So second door on the left, you said? Great, cool. I'll go do that. I turned toward the stairs, hoping my legs wouldn't give out before I made it to the guest room. Adrian. His voice stopped me cold, low, rough, like gravel and silk mixed together. I hated how it made my name sound like something sacred. I didn't turn around. This doesn't change anything, I said to the stairs. I'm staying here temporarily. You're helping me because, I don't know, guilt, pity, some weird uncle code? But whatever just happened, whatever you think you felt, it's not real. Silence, then footsteps. Slow, deliberate. I spun around and suddenly he was closer than before. Not touching, but close enough that his scent wrapped around me again, making my head spin. You think I imagined it? His voice dropped lower and I felt it in my chest. I think you're confusing proximity with chemistry. I crossed my arms, tilting my chin up in what I hoped looked like confidence instead of panic. I'm pregnant, homeless, and your nephew's ex-husband. You're feeling protective. That's all. His jaw ticked. Is that what you tell yourself? It's what I know. Then why is your scent sweeter right now than it was 10 minutes ago? My breath caught. Omegas only sweeten their scent for one reason. Attraction, interest. The biological pull toward an alpha. Traitor body. That's the pregnancy hormones, I lied smoothly. Everything's out of whack. Don't take it personally. Dominic's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Darker, more dangerous. You're a terrible liar. And you're a terrible host. Most people offer their guests water, not psychological warfare. That almost got him. I saw the corner of his mouth twitch, the barest hint of amusement breaking through that stone mask. But then his thoughts slammed into me, loud and clear and absolutely devastating. He has no idea what he does to me. No idea I've been watching him since the wedding. No idea I wanted to rip Garrett apart the second I heard he cast him out. I froze. Wait, since the wedding? You've been watching me? The words came out before I could stop them. His expression shuddered immediately, but it was too late. I'd already heard it, felt it, seen the truth written across his thoughts like neon signs. Dominic Volkov, the most dangerous man in Los Angeles, had been paying attention to me for over a year. Your telepathy, he said quietly, and it wasn't a question. My stomach dropped. And I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. He stepped closer, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. You've been reading me since you got in the car, maybe longer. I don't read people, I said, but my voice wavered. I just pick up on things. Things like what I'm thinking right now. I swallowed hard. His thoughts were a wildfire. Beautiful. Breakable. Mine. Too young. Garrett's. Not anymore. Pregnant. Doesn't matter. Still mine. Stop, I whispered. Stop what? Thinking so loud. His eyes widened, just a fraction. Then something shifted in his expression. Understanding. Acceptance. How long have you been able to do that? Since I was 13. I don't know why I answered. Maybe because lying felt pointless now. I can't control it. I just hear things. Especially when people feel strongly about something. And what do you hear from me? Everything. Too much. Things that made my chest ache and my hands shake and my stupid Omega biology sit up and beg. That you think I'm a problem you need to fix, I said instead. Not entirely a lie, just not the whole truth. Dominic stared at me for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed, not loud, not mean, just a low, rough sound that felt like it came from somewhere deep in his chest. A problem, he repeated, shaking his head. That's one word for it. What's another? His eyes locked onto mine, and the air between us felt electric. Temptation. My heart stopped, then restarted at triple speed. I should have said something cutting, something sassy, something to break the tension that was threatening to suffocate me. But all I could manage was, I'm going to bed now. Good idea. I turned and made it exactly 2 steps before his voice followed me. Adrian. I paused but didn't look back. The bond is real, he said quietly, whether you accept it or not. I didn't answer. I just climbed the stairs, found the second door on the left, and shut myself inside. Then I pressed my back against the door, slid down to the floor, and tried to remember how to breathe. Because Dominic Volkov was right. The bond was real. And I was completely screwed. My hands were shaking. I pressed my palms flat against the hardwood floor, trying to ground myself in something solid, something real. The guest room was beautiful in that sterile, expensive way. King-size bed with white sheets that probably cost more than my last paycheck. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. A door that led to what I assumed was a private bathroom. Everything perfect. Everything wrong. I closed my eyes and tried to push Dominic's thoughts out of my head. The problem with telepathy was that I couldn't just turn it off. Strong emotions stuck to me like smoke, clinging long after the person walked away. Temptation. Mine. Since the wedding. Stop, I muttered to myself. Stop thinking about it. My stomach chose that exact moment to twist violently. Oh no! I scrambled to my feet, barely making it to the bathroom, before I threw up everything I hadn't eaten today, which was nothing, so mostly just bile and regret. Morning sickness was a lie. This was all day, all night. Every moment of my existence sickness. I rinsed my mouth, gripping the marble counter until my knuckles went white. My reflection looked like hell, pale, dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess. This was definitely not the sexy, pregnant Omega look the romance novels promised. Another wave hit. I barely made it back to the toilet. Somewhere between the second and third round of my stomach trying to escape through my throat, I heard a knock. "Go away," I called weakly. The door opened anyway. Of course it did. Dominic stood in the doorway, holding a glass of water and a small white bottle. He took one look at me hunched over the toilet, and his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe. Or regret for letting a disaster case into his pristine house. "I'm fine," I said, which was obviously a lie since I was currently intimate with his toilet bowl. "You're not." "Wow, observant. They teach you that in crime boss school?" He ignored the jab, setting the water and pills on the counter. "Ginger capsules. They'll help." "I don't need help. I need my stomach to remember we're on the same team." Another heave proved my stomach had other ideas. I felt rather than saw Dominic move closer. Then his hand was on my back, warm and steady, rubbing slow circles that shouldn't have been comforting, but absolutely were. "Don't," I managed between gasps. "Shut up and breathe." "Bossy. You have no idea." Despite everything, I almost laughed. Almost. When the nausea finally passed, I slumped against the wall exhausted. Dominic handed me the water without a word. I took it, too tired to argue, and sipped slowly. "The pill," he said, opening the bottle. "I don't take random medication from strange men." "I'm not strange, I'm your mate." I choked on the water. "Alleged mate," I corrected, coughing. "Unconfirmed, highly disputed." His mouth curved into something almost resembling a smile. "Your body seems pretty convinced." My body also thought Garrett was a good idea. My body has terrible judgment. Dominic's expression darkened at the mention of his nephew. His thoughts turned sharp, jagged. Should have killed him. Still might. "Please don't murder your nephew," I said tiredly. "I don't need that kind of drama in my life right now." He blinked. "Your telepathy is inconvenient." "Tell me about it." "Do you know how hard it is to have a private thought when everyone else's thoughts are screaming at you?" "No. Lucky you." He handed me 2 ginger capsules, and this time I took them, mostly because my stomach was staging a full rebellion, and I needed all the help I could get. We sat there in silence for a moment, me on the bathroom floor, him crouched beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "You shouldn't be alone right now," Dominic said quietly. "I've been alone for months. I'm great at it." "That's not what I meant." I looked at him, really looked at him, the hard lines of his face, the scar on his temple, the way his dark eyes held something that looked dangerously close to tenderness. "What did you mean?" He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing just below my eye. "You're exhausted, you're sick, you're carrying a child." His voice dropped lower. "And you called me because you had nowhere else to go." The truth of it hit harder than I expected. "I'm not your responsibility," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "You're my choice." My breath caught, his thumb traced my cheekbone, and I felt the touch everywhere, in my chest, in my stomach, in places I absolutely refuse to acknowledge right now. "This is a bad idea," I said, but I didn't pull away. Most of my ideas are. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. He leaned closer, and I could smell him again. Cedarwood and smoke, and something uniquely Dominic. My Omega instincts purred, content in a way they hadn't been since ever, maybe. "I should go back to bed," I said, and though neither of us moved. "You should. Alone. If that's what you want." "It is." His eyes searched mine, looking for the lie. He found it immediately. "Liar," he murmured, but there was no heat in it, just understanding. I stood up on shaky legs and he rose with me, his hand moving to my elbow to steady me. The touch was gentle, careful, like I might break. "I'm not fragile," I said. "I know." His fingers tightened just slightly. "But you're tired and pregnant, and you just spent 10 minutes throwing up. So let me help you to bed before you collapse." "Romantic." "I'm not trying to be romantic." "Good, because you're terrible at it." That actually got a real smile out of him, small but real. He guided me back to the bedroom, his hand never leaving my elbow. When we reached the bed, I expected him to leave. He didn't. Instead, he pulled back the covers, waited for me to climb in, then sat down on the edge of the mattress. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Making sure you don't die in your sleep." "That's morbid. That's realistic." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to leave, but his hand found mine in the darkness, and the touch quieted something in me I didn't know was screaming. "Just for tonight," I heard myself say. Dominic's thumb traced circles on my palm. "Just for tonight," he agreed. We both knew it was a lie. His thumb kept tracing those slow circles on my palm, and I hated how much I didn't want him to stop. "Can I ask you something?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. "You just did." I rolled my eyes, even though he probably couldn't see it in the dark. "Cute. I mean a real question." "Go ahead." I took a breath, gathering courage I wasn't sure I had. "Why were you watching me? At the wedding? Before that, maybe?" His hand stilled against mine. The silence stretched so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then his thoughts bled through, fragmented and raw. Because he looked lost. Because Garrett didn't deserve him. Because I knew. "Knew what?" I asked softly. Dominic's jaw ticked. "That he'd break you eventually." The words hit like a punch. "You could have warned me." "Would you have listened?" Honest answer? Probably not. I'd been 22 and stupidly in love with the idea of being loved. Garrett had been charming, successful, from a powerful family. Everything I thought I wanted. Everything that turned out to be a beautiful lie. He told me I was too much, I said. The confession spilling out before I could stop it. Too emotional. Too sensitive. He said normal Omegas didn't read minds or have opinions about everything. That I embarrassed him at family dinners because I couldn't just smile and be quiet. Dominic's grip on my hand tightened. "He said that?" "Among other things." I laughed, but it came out brittle. My favorite was when he told me my telepathy was proof something was wrong with me, that I should be medicated, fixed. The temperature in the room dropped. I felt Dominic's rage before I heard his thoughts. They came in sharp, violent bursts. "Kill him. Rip him apart. How dare he? How fucking dare he?" "Hey," I said quickly, squeezing his hand. "Don't go full mob boss on me. I'm fine." "You're not. I survived, didn't I?" "Surviving isn't the same as fine." Fair point. I shifted against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. "When did you know? That he'd cast me out?" Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then, 3 weeks ago, I was at a business meeting in San Francisco. Garrett called. My stomach twisted. "What did he say?" "That he was filing for divorce. That you'd been draining his accounts. Lying about being pregnant to trap him." His voice went cold. "That you were unstable, and he couldn't trust you around his family." Each word landed like a slap. "And you believed him?" "No." The certainty in his voice surprised me. "Why not?" "Because I know my nephew." Dominic's thoughts turned bitter. Coward, liar, just like his father. "And because I'd seen the way he looked at you. Like you were something he owned, not someone he loved." My throat tightened. I thought I was imagining it. The way he'd smile at me in public and then criticize everything I did when we got home. The way he'd introduce me as his Omega, never by my name. I swallowed hard. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. Like he said, "Adrian." Dominic's voice cut through the darkness, firm and sure. "You weren't imagining it. You weren't too sensitive. You were being abused." The word hung between us. Abused. I'd never let myself think it. Never let myself name it. Because Garrett never hit me. Never screamed. He just slowly, carefully dismantled every piece of confidence I had until I believed I was the problem. "He didn't hurt me," I whispered. "Yes, he did." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. Dominic's hand left mine, and for a second I thought he was leaving. Then the mattress dipped and he was closer. No, his arm wrapping around my shoulders, pulling me against his chest. "I shouldn't have let it happen," he said quietly, and I felt his guilt like a physical weight. "I should have stepped in, should have said something. It wasn't your job to save me. Maybe not, But I wanted to. I tilted my head up, trying to see his face in the darkness. Why? His hand came up, fingers threading through my hair, with a gentleness that made my chest ache. Because the first time I saw you, at some dinner party Garrett dragged you to, you were arguing with a senator about prison reform. You were brilliant, fearless. You didn't care that everyone else in the room thought Omegas should be quiet and decorative. His thumb brushed my temple. And Garrett looked at you like you were a pet that had misbehaved. I remembered that night. I remembered Garrett's tight smile, his hand on my elbow steering me away. The silent car ride home. He didn't speak to me for 3 days after that. I know. I heard him tell his mother you were becoming a problem. My breath caught. You were there? I'm always there, Adrian. In the background, watching. His voice dropped lower. Making sure the family doesn't destroy everything they touch. That sounds exhausting. It is. Then why do it? Dominic was quiet for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because someone has to, and because I kept hoping I'd find something worth protecting instead of just cleaning up messes. Did you? His hand cupped my face, tilting it up toward his. Yes. The words settled between us, heavy and certain. The baby, I said suddenly, needing him to understand. And it's not Garrett's. I felt Dominic go still. What? We hadn't been together in months before the divorce. He said touching me made him uncomfortable after I started showing my abilities more openly. The confession tasted like ash. The baby isn't his. Then whose? I bit my lip, debating, then figured honesty was all I had left. I don't know. Dominic pulled back slightly, and I felt his confusion. You don't know. It was one night, after Garrett moved into the guest room permanently. I went to a bar, met someone, and I just wanted to feel wanted for 5 seconds. My voice cracked. I don't even remember his name. I waited for judgment, disgust, all the things Garrett had thrown at me when I'd finally told him the truth. But Dominic just pulled me closer. Does Garrett know it's not his? Yes. And that's why he cast me out. Understanding crashed through Dominic's thoughts. That's why he moved so fast. Why he was so vicious. I'm sorry, Dominic said quietly. For what? For not getting to you sooner? And somehow that simple statement broke something open inside me. I pressed my face against his chest and finally let myself cry. Dominic didn't tell me to stop, didn't pull away or offer empty platitudes about everything being okay. He just held me. His hand moved to the back of my neck, steady and warm, while I soaked his probably expensive shirt with tears and snot, and 3 months of grief I'd been too proud to let out. Sorry, I hiccuped against his chest. I'm getting your shirt wet. I have others. Probably designer ones that cost more than my car. I don't care about the shirt. Swana Adrian. Something about the way he said my name made me cry harder. When the tears finally slowed, I felt hollowed out, empty in a way that was almost peaceful, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there until it was gone. I pulled back slightly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. Well, that was humiliating. It wasn't. I just ugly cried all over a mob boss. Pretty sure that's grounds for losing my sarcasm license. His mouth twitched. You're still talking, so I think you're safe. I laughed, watery and weak, but real. Thank God. It's all I have left. Dominic's hand was still on my neck, his thumb tracing the edge of my jaw. The touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it made my breath catch. You have more than that, he said quietly. Do I? Let's see. Pregnant with a stranger's baby. Divorced. Broke. Homeless. Living with my ex-husband's uncle who may or may not be my fated mate. I ticked each point off on my fingers. I'm basically a country song. You forgot telepathic. Oh, right. Telepathic disaster. Even better. And sarcastic. That's a given. And brave. I froze. Dominic's eyes held mine in the darkness, serious and unflinching. I'm not brave, I said. Brave people don't run away. You didn't run. You survived. There's a difference. Semantics. Truth. His hand slipped from my neck to cup my face, and I should have pulled away. Should have put distance between us before this became something I couldn't take back. but I didn't want to. Can I tell you something? Dominic asked, his voice low. You're asking permission now? Character growth. His lips curved into an almost smile. I'm trying. Okay. Well, tell me. He took a breath, and I felt his hesitation through our connection. Whatever he was about to say, it cost him something. I was married once. That was not what I expected. Was? She died 6 years ago. My heart clenched. Dominic, I'm sorry. He shook his head slightly. It was complicated. We weren't happy. The marriage was arranged. Business. His thoughts flickered, painful and sharp. Duty, obligation, never love. But she was kind. She deserved better than what I could give her. What happened? Car accident, wrong place, wrong time. His jaw tightened. I was supposed to be with her. I chose a meeting instead. The guilt in his voice was suffocating. That wasn't your fault, I said softly. Wasn't it? No. I reached up, my hand covering his where it rested against my cheek. Accidents are accidents. You can't blame yourself for not being psychic. But you are. Psychic, I mean. Telepathic. Different thing. I hear thoughts, not the future. I paused. Although that would be useful, I could have avoided so many bad decisions. Like Garrett. Like Garrett, I agreed. And probably the tequila shots that led to this. I gestured vaguely at my still flat stomach. Dominic's eyes dropped to where my hand rested, and something shifted in his expression. Softer. Protective. Do you regret it? The baby? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I regret the circumstances. I regret not knowing the father's name. I regret that this kid is going to grow up with me as a parent, which seems like a cosmic joke. I took a breath. But I don't regret them. Them, Dominic repeated, to testing the word. Yeah, them. They're currently the size of a lime and making me throw up 6 times a day, but they're mine. My voice cracked slightly. They're the only thing that's completely mine. Dominic's thumb brushed across my cheekbone, catching a tear I didn't know had fallen. Not the only thing, he said quietly. My heart stuttered. Dominic. I know, it's too fast. Too complicated. You're pregnant with someone else's child, and I'm your ex-husband's uncle, and there are approximately 700 reasons this is a terrible idea. His eyes searched mine. But I can't stop thinking about you. Haven't been able to since the wedding. That was over a year ago. I know. You barely spoke to me, because if I had, I wouldn't have been able to stop. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. This is insane, I whispered. Probably. We barely know each other. I know you're brave, and funny, and stronger than you think. I know you argue with senators and read minds and cry when you think no one's watching. His voice dropped. I know you taste like honey when you're scared, and that your scent gets sweeter when I touch you. My breath caught. That's the bond talking. Maybe. Or maybe the bond just makes it impossible to lie about what I already felt. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. His lips brushed mine, soft and questioning, not demanding, just asking. And God help me, I answered. I kissed him back, my hand fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He made a low sound in his throat, something between a growl and a groan, and deepened the kiss. It wasn't desperate or rough. It was careful, tender, like he was afraid I might break. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Stay, he whispered. Not just tonight. Stay. I should have said no. Should have been smart. Instead, I heard myself say, okay. His arms tightened around me, and I felt his relief like a physical thing. We lay down together, my back against his chest, his arm wrapped protectively around my waist. His hand settled over my stomach, gentle and possessive all at once. Sleep, he murmured against my hair. For the first time in months, I did, and for a few perfect hours, I let myself believe this could work. I woke to the sound of rain against the windows and Dominic's heartbeat under my ear. For a moment, everything felt right. Safe. Like maybe I'd finally found somewhere I belonged. Then his thoughts crashed into me. Dreams were always the loudest. When people slept, their mental barriers dropped, and everything they tried to hide during the day bled through in vivid, chaotic bursts. Usually I could block them out, tune them down to white noise. But Dominic's dreams weren't white noise. They were memories. A bar in Santa Monica, 3 months ago, dim lights and expensive whiskey, a beautiful Omega sitting alone, crying into his drink. My breath stopped. You look like you're having a rough night. My own voice slurred and broken. Join the club. What's his name? A voice I knew now. Dominic's voice. Gentle. Concerned. Garrett. My husband. Ex-husband. I don't know anymore. Laughing, bitter, and wrong. He says I'm too broken to love. No. You're not broken. Dominic's hand on my shoulder, warm and steady. You're just with the wrong person. Yeah? And who's the right person? Smiling through tears. You? Maybe. No. 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 The memory shifted, blurred. A hotel room, hands in my hair, whispered promises I didn't remember making. Dominic's scent everywhere, wrapping around me like a claim. I'll take care of you. I promise. I'll take care of everything. I jerked away from him so violently I fell off the bed. The crash woke Dominic instantly. He sat up, immediately alert, his eyes finding me on the floor. Adrian, what's wrong? I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. It was you, his expression shuddered. What? That night, 3 months ago. Santa Monica. My voice shook. In a way, it was you. I watched understanding dawn across his face, watched him realize what I'd seen. Adrian, let me explain. Explain? I laughed high and brittle. You're the father. You've known this whole time and you didn't say anything. It's not what you think. Really? Because what I think is that you slept with your nephew's husband, got me pregnant, and then waited for the perfect moment to swoop in and play hero when everything fell apart. I grabbed the bedpost, hauling myself up on shaking legs. Tell me I'm wrong. Dominic stood slowly, hands raised like I was a wild animal about to bolt. You're not completely wrong. The admission hit like a slap. Oh my God. But you're not completely right either. Adrian, please, just listen. No. I backed toward the door. You knew. Well, you knew it was your baby and you let me think I was some kind of mess who couldn't even remember a one-night stand. You let me feel ashamed. I didn't know you didn't remember. His voice cracked. That night you were drunk, crying. I tried to get you to let me take you home, but you said you wanted to forget, so He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I made sure you were safe, made sure you got back to your hotel. I didn't realize you black out the whole thing. Convenient. It's the truth. Is it? Or is this just what you tell yourself so you can sleep at night? I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You watched me for a year. You wanted me. So you waited until I was vulnerable and drunk and broken, and you took what you wanted. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Dominic? Explain to me how any of this is okay. He took a step toward me. I took one back. I was at that bar because Garrett called me, said you were there alone, drunk, embarrassing him, asked me to handle it. His jaw clenched. I went to make sure you were safe. That's all. And you just happened to sleep with me? You kissed me first. His voice went quiet. You said you wanted to feel wanted, just once. And I tried to say no, tried to be the better man. But you looked at me like I was the only person in the world who saw you, and I broke. I wanted to believe him, wanted to so badly it hurt. But the facts didn't lie. You still didn't tell me. When I showed up at your car, pregnant and desperate, you knew that baby was yours and you didn't say a word. Because I didn't want you to think that's why I was helping you. Dominic's hands curled into fists at his sides. I didn't want you to feel trapped or obligated or like you owed me anything. So you just lied instead? I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumption. That's the same thing. My voice broke. You let me tell you about my one-night stand with a stranger. Let me feel guilty and ashamed and stupid. And the whole time you knew. I was going to tell you. He stepped closer, and this time I couldn't back up any further. The door was behind me. Adrian, I swear I was going to tell you. I just needed you to trust me first. Trust you? I laughed and it came out jagged. How can I trust you when everything between us was built on a lie? Not everything. The bond is real. What I feel for you is real. Is it? Or do you just feel obligated because I'm carrying your baby? His eyes flashed. You know that's not true. You can read my thoughts. You know exactly how I feel. Yeah, I do. I met his gaze, forcing myself not to break. I know you've wanted me since the wedding. I know you hated Garrett for how he treated me. I know you saw an opportunity and you took it. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Dominic. I learned that when my husband cast me out for getting pregnant with a baby, that's apparently yours. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. Dominic's thoughts were a storm. Tell him everything. Make him understand. There's more, isn't there? I asked quietly. He closed his eyes. Yes. Tell me. I paid Garrett to divorce you. The world tilted. What? After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about you. Couldn't stand the thought of you going back to him, so I made him an offer. Dominic's voice was flat, emotionless. $5 million to divorce you quietly and never contact you again. I couldn't breathe. You bought me. No, I freed you. Same thing. It's not. He reached for me, but I flinched away. The hurt that flashed across his face almost broke me. Adrian, please, get away from me. Adrian, I said get away. I yanked the door open and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to move, needed air, needed space between me and the man who just casually admitted to buying my divorce like it was a business transaction. The hallway blurred past and my bare feet slapped against cold marble as I flew down the stairs, us taking them two at a time because apparently my self-preservation instincts had clocked out for the day. Adrian, wait! Dominic's voice behind me only made me move faster. I hit the ground floor and veered toward the front door, yanking it open. Rain slammed into me immediately, cold and sharp, soaking through my borrowed sleep shirt in seconds. I didn't care. I stumbled down the front steps and onto the gravel driveway, my mind a hurricane of thoughts that weren't all mine. Dominic's thoughts chased me, loud and desperate. Come back, please. Let me explain. Don't run. Please don't run. Stop thinking so loud, I shouted into the rain, spinning around. He stood in the doorway, lit from behind, looking like every romantic movie villain who thought love justified manipulation. Come inside, he said, his voice carrying over the storm. You're getting soaked. I don't care. You're pregnant. I'm aware. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering, considering I'm carrying the baby of a man who apparently orchestrated my entire life like some kind of twisted puppet master. That's not what I did. Really. Because from where I'm standing, you saw what you wanted, paid off the obstacle, and waited for me to come crawling to you when I had nowhere else to go. I laughed, bitter and cold. Congratulations, it worked. Dominic stepped out into the rain, and I watched water immediately plaster his hair to his forehead, his shirt turning transparent against his skin. You think I planned this? His voice was rough. You think I wanted you to go bankrupt? Wanted you to be homeless and terrified and alone? I don't know what you wanted. That's the problem. I wanted you safe. He moved closer and I stood my ground, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. I wanted you away from a man who was destroying you piece by piece. I wanted you to have a chance at a life that didn't involve walking on eggshells and apologizing for existing. That wasn't your choice to make. You're right. It wasn't. He stopped a few feet away, rain streaming down his face. But I made it anyway, and I'd do it again. The honesty of it punched the air from my lungs. You can't just decide what's best for people and manipulate their lives to make it happen. I know. That's not love. That's control. I know that too. I stared at him. trembling from cold and rage and something dangerously close to heartbreak. Then why did you do it? Because watching you break was killing me. His voice cracked. Every family dinner, every time Garrett said something that made you flinch, every forced smile you gave when someone asked if you were happy. It was torture, and I couldn't just stand there and do nothing anymore. So you threw money at the problem. Yes, and slept with me when I was drunk and vulnerable. His jaw clenched. That night wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to make sure you got home safe and never think about it again. But then you looked at me like I was the only thing keeping you from falling apart. And he ran a hand through his wet hair, frustrated. I wanted you. I'd wanted you for over a year. And for one night, I let myself have what I wanted instead of doing what was right. And the baby? I didn't know. Not until you showed up at my car and I could smell it. The pregnancy, the bond. His eyes held mine. In that moment, I realized everything I'd done to set you free had tied us together permanently. Rain pelted down between us, and I could feel my resolve cracking. You should have told me, I said, quieter now. The second I got in your car, you should have told me. I know. I deserve the truth. You did. So why didn't you give it to me? Dominic took another step closer, and this time I didn't move away. Because I was selfish. Because I wanted a chance to prove I could be more than the monster you'd assume I was if you knew everything. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not touching. Art, because I knew the second you found out, you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me right now. And how's that? Like I'm the villain in your story instead of someone trying desperately to be the hero. My breath hitched. His thoughts flooded through me, raw and unfiltered. Love him, want him, need him. Knew it was wrong, did it anyway. Would do it again. Can't lose him. Can't. I'm not a prize to be won, Dominic. I know. And I'm not some broken thing you get to fix. I know that too. Then what am I to you? He finally touched me, his hand cupping my rain-soaked face with a gentleness that made my knees weak. Everything. The word hung between us, simple and devastating. I should have pulled away. Should have told him it was too late, that trust broken couldn't be rebuilt. Instead, I heard myself ask, if I leave right now, will you try to stop me? Pain flashed across his face. No. Even though I'm carrying your baby. Even then. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I won't trap you, Adrian, not ever. If you want to go, I'll give you money, a car, anything you need. I'll disappear from your life completely if that's what you want. And if I stay? His eyes searched mine, desperate and hoping. Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. I closed my eyes, feeling rain and tears mix on my face. I hate you right now, I whispered. I know. I hate that you lied, that you manipulated everything, that you made choices for me. I know. I opened my eyes, meeting his gaze. But I hate more that I understand why you did it. Hope sparked in his expression. Adrian, don't. I stepped back, needing space to think. I need time to process, to figure out if I can trust you again. How much time? I don't know. Maybe forever. He nodded slowly, accepting. I'll wait. You might be waiting a long time. Then I'll wait a long time. I turned back toward the house, exhausted and soaked and emotionally destroyed. I'm going inside, alone. Okay. I made it 3 steps before I stopped. Dominic? Yes? Thank you. My voice barely carried over the rain. For getting me away from Garrett, even if your methods were terrible. When I looked back, he was smiling. Sad but real. You're welcome. I walked back into the house, leaving him standing in the rain. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a future where forgiveness was possible. I stood dripping in the foyer, staring at the puddle forming around my feet like it held answers to questions I didn't know how to ask. My telepathy was usually a curse. Right now, it felt like the only honest thing in my life, because I'd felt Dominic's thoughts. All of them. The guilt, the longing, the desperate hope that maybe somehow I'd forgive him. But I'd also felt the truth. He loved me, had loved me long before that night in Santa Monica, long before I'd shown up pregnant and desperate at his car. The real question was, did that make what he did better or worse? I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering, and walked toward the kitchen. I needed tea, or whiskey, or possibly both. Instead, I found an envelope on the counter. My name was written across it in sharp, masculine handwriting. I picked it up with trembling fingers and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Adrian, I'm not good with words, never have been, but you deserve more than silence. The night we met at that bar, you asked me if I believed in fate. I said no. I lied. I've spent 6 years believing I didn't deserve a second chance at happiness, that my wife's death was punishment for being a man who chose power over love, duty over connection. Then I saw you at Garrett's wedding. You were laughing at something, and the whole room seemed brighter. I thought, there's someone who hasn't been broken by this family yet. I was wrong. You were already breaking. I just couldn't see it. When Garrett called me that night 3 months ago, told me you were falling apart at some bar, I knew it was my fault. Well, I'd watched him hurt you for over a year and done nothing. I should have walked away, should have made sure you got home and never thought about you again. But when you kissed me, when you looked at me like I was something more than the monster everyone knows I am, I couldn't. For one night, I let myself be the man you saw instead of the man I actually am. Paying Garrett to divorce you was wrong. I know that. But watching you stay with him would have killed something in me I didn't know I still had. Hope. You asked what you are to me. The truth is, you're the first person in 6 years who made me want to be better, who made me believe I could be. I won't ask you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I will ask you to let me prove I can be the man you need. Not the one who manipulates and controls, but the one who protects and cherishes. The choice is yours. It always will be. If you decide to leave, there's a car key in the drawer and $50,000 in cash in the safe. Code, your birthday. It's yours, no strings. If you decide to stay, I'm in the East Wing office, waiting. Whatever you choose, know this. I will love you and our child for the rest of my life, even if it's from a distance. I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Then I folded it carefully, set it on the counter, and walked toward the East Wing. The office door was open. Dominic sat behind a massive desk, still soaking wet, staring at nothing. His thoughts were quiet, resigned. She's leaving. I know she's leaving, and I deserve it. You're wrong, I said from the doorway. His head snapped up, eyes wide. Hadn't about what? About deserving it, and about me leaving. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. I'm furious with you. I might be furious for a really long time. I understand. But I also understand something else. I moved closer, watching him track my every movement like I might disappear. You're not perfect. You're controlling and manipulative, and you have terrible boundaries. Adrian, I'm not done. I rounded the desk, and he turned in his chair to face me. But you're also the first person in my life who saw me as something more than a problem to manage. You saw me struggling, and instead of telling me to be quieter or easier or less, you burned Garrett's world down to set me free. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it honest. I knelt in front of him, taking his hands in mine. They were cold, and I shaking slightly. I can work with honest. Hope flickered in his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I read your letter, and I felt your thoughts, and I know you love me. I squeezed his hands. I also know I'm falling in love with you, which is probably the worst timing in the history of terrible timing. But there it is. You're sure? No, I'm terrified. But I'm also sure that running from the first person who makes me feel safe because he's not perfect is the dumbest thing I could do. I smiled, watery but real. And I've done enough dumb things this year. Dominic pulled me up and into his lap in one smooth movement, his arms wrapping around me like he'd never let go. I'll do better, he whispered against my hair. I swear I'll do better. I know, because if you don't, I'll read your thoughts and call you out every single time. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. That's terrifying. Good. You should be a little scared of me. I am. You're the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I pulled back to look at him. Scarier than running the Los Angeles Underground? Infinitely. His hand came up to cup my face. Because you're the only thing I have to lose that actually matters. My breath caught. Kiss me, I whispered. He did. It was different from the first time. Slower. Deeper. A promise instead of a question. When we finally pulled apart, I felt it. The bond clicking into place, permanent and unbreakable. Mine, Dominic murmured against my lips. Ours, I corrected, placing his hand over my stomach where our baby grew. His eyes went bright with emotion. Ours, he agreed. And somewhere between the rain and the ruins of everything I thought my life would be, I found something better. Home.